Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Bidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Bitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It is my honor and my great happiness to be with all of you this evening. Thank you for changing whatever commitments you had tonight to be with us. The power to change is in each and every one of our hands at every moment. As human beings, we have a most precious gift. A gift that differentiates us from all other species of life. The fish, the insects, the reptiles, the animals, the birds. They are more or less programmed by nature to behave in certain ways. You never see a tiger becoming a vegetarian on ethical grounds. And you never see a cow running as fast as it can to devour a rabbit. Because they really have no choice. They act according to their nature. You never see a mosquito eating berries because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. They can't think beyond the way they're karmically programmed by nature. But a human being has free will. That free will can create the worst disasters or the greatest blessings. We could create nuclear bombs and drop them. We can pollute the environment, We can create crime. We can declare wars. We could do terrorism. We could abuse the innocent. It's based on free will. Or we could enlighten ourselves and perform every act, every word, and every thought in a spirit of deep compassion for all living beings. So when we speak of change, we are speaking of how we choose to use our free will. We all have that. In one sense, the way creation has been designed since beginning, it's constantly changing. We can't stop change. It's just a question of what type of change we want to facilitate. By the power of time, Rajaguna, Tamaguna, Sattvaguna, the three modes of nature, everything's always changing. Every cell in the body of every living organism is always going through changes. The earth, how many changes? We're sitting here in Mumbai in an air-conditioned room because it's hot. But where my father lives in Chicago, it's about it's in Celsius. What is 5 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit? Huh? It's really cold. There's this much snow. And people are dying because it's so cold. But in a couple months, in the same place, it's going to be about 50 degrees Celsius. So things are always changing. The seasons are changing. Political climate is always changing. We have seen in human society, just in the last couple generations, such enormous changes. What was it? Just about 70 some years ago. That's not much. This was the Lady Northcote Hindu Orphanage, a British building, and the whole country of India was ruled by the British. And who could have ever imagined such a change as what happened? Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, they believed in something by their free will. And they were willing to make sacrifices for their ideal. People were willing to be killed. They were willing to be beaten, willing to be publicly disgraced, willing to be imprisoned. And because of their determination for their ideal, the freedom fighters, India is an independent nation. But what kind of problems are still here? How many problems? Nelson Mandela, just a single man. He was in prison for so many decades. He was beaten. He was deprived of human decency. And then he became the president of his nation. And when he died, every newspaper, every magazine, every television station on the planet was only talking about that. He chose to make a change. In the country where I was born, in the 1860s, which is not that long ago. I was born it was just 80 years before I was born. All the African American people were slaves. They were bought and sold. And whoever bought them, they were their property, and either they did what they were told to do, or they were usually killed. There wasn't even a penalty hardly for killing a slave because it's your property. And then there was a civil war. That was a big change. More Americans were killed in the Civil War than World War I or World War II. It was Americans fighting Americans over ideologies, the North and the South. Massive slaughter of human life. But then, after that, things didn't really change that much. They changed in the law books. People may not have owned, but there wasn't freedom. African American people were forced to live in the ghettos. In many states of America, they weren't allowed in colleges with white people. They weren't allowed in restaurants with white people. Recently, my father, one of his dear friends, was one of the first African American to be given the right to enter into Major League Baseball. Do you know what Major League Baseball is? It's the most popular sport in America. And up until the end of the 1940s, if you had black skin, you couldn't play. It was only for white people. So the blacks formed their own leagues, and their leagues were actually better. But nobody would pay anything they couldn't get paid hardly anything to play. And this one person, my father's friend, I was with him just a couple months ago, and he was telling me what it was like. This was in the 1950s. He was with a team. When the team went to a hotel to go to play someone else, he couldn't stay in the hotel. They had to find him a place in the ghetto to stay with a black family. When the team went to a restaurant, he couldn't go in the restaurant. When the team took a bus, he couldn't be in the public bus with them. And because of the color of his skin, the pitchers, you know what pitchers are? They throw the ball. Baseball is like a expansion of cricket. It's like a plenary portion of cricket. They would throw the ball right at his head, and it's a really hard ball. They would throw it right at his head as fast as they can. And he told me, in all of the baseball history, he has a record. He's been hit on the head with balls more than anyone else. Because they just hated him. And Martin Luther King and other people, they began their civil rights movement. They went to prison. They were beaten. Many were killed. And it's unimaginable, because I was part of that movement when I was young. It's absolutely inconceivable and unimaginable to change that today the President of the United States is an African American. coming from that culture just 30, 40 years ago. But still, how many problems in America? And the poor president, my God, he's getting smashed. He's getting baseballs thrown at his head at every second in various ways. So the world is always changing. And for social change, people stand up with determination and belief in their ideals and the willingness to take risks. And what kind of technological and scientific changes has been there? As I have said before, just my father's 90 years old. When he was a child, there was no such thing as television. There was no such thing as telephones in people's houses. There was no such thing as a computer. Only the richest people could afford a car. And when I was young, it wasn't that much different. And now, my God, before the class, every class, somebody has to announce, turn off your cell phones. I just saw somebody do it at this moment. One just went off right now. We didn't orchestrate that either. Incredible, everyone. The science, the technology. There were so many diseases. People were dying of smallpox all over the world. Now there's no smallpox. Tuberculosis, if you had it, you'd die. Now there's so many cures. Heart disease. Now there's open heart surgeries. Such incredible progress, such incredible change in medicine, technology, and telecommunications and entertainment technologies. What to speak of military. Now, you could, if a bomb's coming, you just press a button and it goes into the air and hits the bomb. Who could imagine such a thing? But with all our medical technology, is the world much healthier? I was at a conference in California where some of the most accomplished investors, bankers, entertainers, scientists, and medical people were having seminars. Leaders of countries, leaders of universities. And they had statistics that in the people living today, 1/3 of every male is going to have cancer in their life. And 1/4 of every female is going to have cancer in her life. That's a medical statistic of what's coming. And hepatitis and heart disease. With all our medical technology, are we much healthier? And mental disease is worse than it's ever been in recorded history. One of the largest selling drugs is a drug for depression. It's billions of dollars invested in these drugs for depression. So much stress. even in leading universities, suicides of students, top students. It's happening all over the world. With all of our military progress and technologies, there's still so many wars. And the dangers of an all-out war now is the worst it's ever been in history. Mahabharata was a world war. Yes? But the only people who were directly affected were the soldiers at Kurukshetra. Yes? That was a nice war in that sense. Everybody else was, had their sides and they were waiting for the news, but they were not affected. But now, if there is such a war, the nuclear bombs pointed at each other, practically all the major nations, what's going to happen to the innocent public? Is it really much better? And with our looking to the West for solutions to our problems, and the West looking to material technologies and material resources and material political ideologies, the immorality, the crime, the abuse, the frailties in human relationships, the potential of conflict between friends, between husbands and wives, between brothers, sisters, between communities, between races, religions, nations, over insignificant, unimportant things. If we look at from a big picture, all the things practically we're fighting about are really not very important. And the fighting about it is a worse problem than what we're fighting about. Does that make sense? Why can't we see that? It's so obvious. It's so easy. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the preface, Srila Prabhupada writes that today's world, we have made strides of progress in material comforts, in economic development, in academic education, in science and technology. But the environment, the unsustainable condition of what we're doing to the environment and what we're doing to each other. People have so many addictions because of anxiety, because of suffering. Srila Prabhupada explains that with all of our progress, there is a pinprick. That just nothing's really getting better. In certain levels it's better. But what's really required to make things better? Srila Prabhupada explains in his own life, and this is quite instructive. He was an extremely devoted participant in Gandhi's movement for nonviolent revolution, for the freedom of India. So much so, he wore khadi. And when the British was ruling, if you wore khadi, that means you're a follower of Gandhi. That means anybody who is in political power at that time is going to see you as an enemy. It was a bold statement. And he, although he completed his college, he refused to accept his degree. He just left it because it was run by the British. So he was making sacrifices. And then in 1922 in Calcutta, he went to a rooftop brought by a friend to meet a great sadhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur looked at him. As soon as he saw him, he said, "You are an intelligent young man. You should take the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhagavad Gita, to the whole world in the English language." Who is a person that I'm just meeting? Who is he to tell me this? Prabhupada said, as long as we are a subjugated nation, who is going to listen to us? First, we must fight for our independence. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was not against independence, but he was a realized Mahatma on a spiritual level, calling for a real change in the world. He said, political parties and who rules nations, that's always changing in this world. But still so much problems, so much conflicts. He said, the real change that must take place is within ourselves. Even Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. He understood the principle. The problem with what happened in India is we changed the political situation, but not too many changed themselves. And it's just kind of the same types of problems in different dresses with different names. And that's usually what different political parties are about, unless there's a real change within ourselves, real values, real integrity. And the Srimad Bhagavatam explains in its very first line of the first verse, Janmadyasya yataha. It's citing from the Brahma Sutra. Because the Bhagavad Purana is Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedas, the compiler of the Vedas. It is his commentary on the Brahma Sutras. So he begins with the beginning of Brahma Sutra. Janmadyasya yataha. This is where we find a real solution in this simple, concise aphorism. If only we can understand this. Not just theoretically, but practically.